Mars is the juridical capital of humanity and the birthplace of the Kepler Initiative. Since its slow terraformation in the early 22nd century, the Red Planet has seen a significant influx of humans and post-humans. Today, over 6 billion inhabit Mars's sprawling cities as the last pockets of natural inhospitality on the Red Planet slowly dwindle away. Before extensive operations began, Mars was a cold and rustic desert. Its thin atmosphere denied any sort of carbon life to prosper, and the chaotic dust storms that ravaged its surface wrought difficult living conditions. Nearly a century before its colonization, NASA and other organizations studied the planet in its entirety with a whole host of probes, rovers, and satellites. But it wasn't until the mid-21st century that these organizations began seriously considering its colonization. The first permanent outposts on Mars were joint constructed by SpaceX and NASA to house generations of future colonists. Despite many people's fears that the mission would fail, these outposts were fairly safe, and the first Martian settlers ironically had very little to worry about. These encouraging endeavors, however, could not deter troubles back on Earth, prompting most governments to pull out of the Martian program, and leaving private enterprises to fend for themselves. With growing commercial traction, these corporations managed to jumpstart spaceports and proto-cities like Ellenport and the Andromedas. After a desperate period of trial and error involving the departure of many of the Kepler Initiative's remaining investors, and after nearly going into bankruptcy, Atlantic's first post-human colonists walked on the Martian surface in December of 2104, showcased to the public at Andromeda 02. Although initial reactions were mixed, when Atlantic offered free interplanetary transport to their patrons, customers flocked to migrate off-world. Colonists of all creeds and all backgrounds arrived at Ellenport in the coming years. With every ship's departure, the societies of Earth began to crumble piece by piece. Some nations attempted to restrict off-world travel altogether. The first 2 decades of post-Kepler Mars could only be described as claustrophobic, as nearly 2 billion people flooded the Red Planet. Atlantic lacked the immediate resources to provide for these refugees. Most everyone lived in close-quarter spaces, sharing beds with strangers and receiving food and water from amnesty programs organized by SpaceX and other groups. Mercenaries and militias were able to keep the peace, but despite their best efforts, underground crime rackets ran amok. These were far from the ideal conditions that many settlers believed they would find, but in the very least, it was far, far away from the utter chaos that had engulfed Earth. Over time, as the resources and housing needed to provide for these many billions of people grew, these living conditions improved dramatically. The establishment of individual municipalities, either from corporate sponsorship or some nationalist remnant of Earth society, helped expand the Kepler communes and the greater economy of the Red Planet. Things began to speed up, and private enterprises beyond Atlantic and SpaceX, now Starfront, started to emerge, with TerraFirm, Ocean4, Deuced, Miraral, Iris Corp, and many others. The corporate realm of Mars expanded dramatically to the point of hegemony, and that is where it remains today. The terraformation of Mars has been an unwieldy and at times impossible task. No other planet in the solar system has gone through the process of becoming an Earth-like environment as painfully as Mars has. Creating a thick enough atmosphere to retain solar heat and deflect solar radiation with technology left over from the collapse of Earth was difficult enough, but in 2133, municipalities and even some host corporations began advocating for the introduction of greenhouse gases into Mars's atmosphere, in hopes of opening up more avenues for construction projects and colonization. The added challenge of introducing these changes while retaining the everyday livelihoods of the Martian populace has made this an especially difficult process. These efforts are ongoing, and the latest projections see Mars's air as fully Earth-like by 2230. Currently, Mars is the most populated planetary body in the solar cluster, boasting over 6 billion inhabitants across its megacities and providing much of the commerce seen throughout the system.